listeners, welcome to the Startup Catalyst. Today, as guest, I have Amit Singal. Amit has a very deep-rooted experience in the entrepreneurship in the startup world. He's the founder of Fluid Ventures and he's running Real-Time Angel Fund as well. I'll let Amit complete the introduction. Welcome, Amit.
Sure. Thank you, Hetal, for inviting me for this podcast. Hi everyone. My name is Amit Singal. I run two fund, Fluid Venture, which is purely focused on direct-to-consumer brands. We started this fund in 2021, and till now we have invested in 10 companies. Our typical check size is 2 crore to 3 crore rupees. We come at a early stage. We require some sales number to see the growth. So typically we invest only on those companies where they have achieved 50 lakh rupees per month MRR. So that is the main thesis of Fluid Venture. Real-Time Angel Fund is a network of people where we have 700 plus investors who co-invest with us as a network, and till now we have invested in 30 companies in last 2 years. Real-Time Angel Fund is a sector agnostic fund, and we search for a lead investor out of these 700 investors. They lead the round, and that's how we invest in the startup. Typically we invest between 80 lakh rupees to 2 crore rupees from Real-Time Angel Fund.
Wonderful. That's very encouraging, and funding is obviously something which is very essential for early stage startups. So I'm sure apart from your mentoring expertise, your ability to help raise funds will be a significant value contributor to these startups and our incubators as well. Right now, as you notice, the startup ecosystem is very vibrant, and a lot of things are going up and down. What is your reading on the Indian startup ecosystem? What are the trends that you're observing in the market?
Yeah, so Hetal, there are trends. Overall, if I will discuss about the fundamentals, now we have start talking about the profitability part, which was not there into the ecosystem earlier. As I started my angel investment journey in 2015 with Burger Singh, and till now I have invested in 40 plus company in my personal capacity as well. Earlier the concept was to look at the growth part only, but over the last 2 years we have seen that now the profitability has become equally important. So definitely first core factor is that now people are looking for sustainable business, and definitely every time there are some flavor which are of that particular period. So definitely most of people are talking about generative AIs or the deep tech, etc. But to be very honest, my personal thesis is more aligned towards healthcare, agri-tech, and something related to new upcoming technology, which is more or less B2B SaaS, because I believe that B2B SaaS still lots of things have to be done. So I personally look out for those kind of opportunities where this can align with that. And to add that, whatever relates to health, that excite me the most, because I see the consumption pattern of India where people are start spending lots of money on the health.
Right. No, I think that's very interesting. And from your background perspective, I can understand that funding and fundraising would be a very obvious reason why startups come and engage with you. But what's been your journey from a mentorship perspective? What do you typically mentor startups on? And if you could cite some examples of the startups that you have mentored, that would also help.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm by default mentor, to be very honest, because once you start investing in the startups, you have to mentor them with your experience. As per my education background, I'm a chartered accountant, so definitely people ask me lots of questions about the finance. So I started my mentorship with few companies on the finance part, where I help them to set up the internal control of their company, how to set up the team, how to manage the compliance part, and how to make sure that the investor reporting should be taken care of. So Hital, if you are aware, I started my startup journey with Startup Buddy, where we have worked with more than 1,000 entrepreneurs to handhold them for the CFO services. So we are a kind of virtual CFO services where they help startups to take care of the entire finance function. So I have mentors many companies. I would not like to mention few names, but some of those companies are now listed as well, where I help them in the entire finance function, and that is in consumer space.
No, definitely. Startup Buddy reminds me of a lot of past memories. I still have the plaque lying at home where you had called me as a speaker, and I think that's where we had met first.
Correct.
Apart from Saurabh from Advantage Club, who was a common connect and who had got us connected as well. And it's
So
interesting that you mentioned.
you can see that whosoever is there in Advantage Club as a finance guy, that has been given by me.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
I selected them. So that's how we keep helping them. But
Wonderful.
largely into the finance, but definitely being an entrepreneur, whatever help founders require from
Right.
us.
No, that's a great point that you brought about because, before even you talk about funding, a startup needs to get their finance in order, right? And from that perspective, the virtual CFO service that you offered is very critical because I see startup founders either come from a tech background or from a non-tech background, and typically non-tech is sales, marketing, right? They have a great idea and they're like, okay, I can make this idea work in action. Rarely do I see someone who's strong in finance becoming a founder. And from that perspective, getting help from a virtual CFO is a great idea where, without onboarding a huge cost of getting a in-house CFO, you could actually get most of the critical finance functions executed through the virtual CFO. That's a fantastic route, and I hope that the listeners will make note of that. That's something which can be really considered as a key element to reach out to you. We noticed that the need for mentorship comes about when startups face challenges. When the entrepreneur is stuck somewhere and he doesn't know what to do, he can't see support coming from from either his co-founder or his in-house team, and that's where the need for mentorship comes in. What are the typical challenges that you have observed in startups and in entrepreneurship in your entire journey? If you could, enlist a few of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing you yourself said, the roles and responsibility between the co-founders. That's the important thing, which I feel that there is a challenge in most of the companies where their conflict arise, and most of the time they have to shut down as well. So I strongly believe that the roles and responsibility of all the co-founders should be very clear. That's how they can manage the companies. And in case they require any mentorship to do documentation around that or how to do that, they should do that. Roles and responsibility of the key employees is extremely important. Most of the startups fail to do that. Again, then they look for the mentor to arbitration between the team. So that's another challenge which should avoid. The most important thing is corporate governance, where everyone's take decision as per their own choice. So we have seen multiple companies, even large funded companies, where we have seen that they have shut down because of bad corporate governance or bad the finance angle. So that's how it is very important to make sure that you have a good corporate governance. You should have a communication amongst the top team, and you should be very clear that how the finance function will run. There should be internal control, and entire thing should be documented. There should be proper SOPs around that finance function, that how any small expenditure will be taken care or will be booked in the books of account and how it will be paid. So if we will focus on corporate governance, definitely the challenges will be reduced.
No, those are two very good points. One is the roles and responsibility of the founders, and second is corporate governance. And especially corporate governance has become very prominent among, of late, because there have been a few big misses from the side of the startup, including startups which are well funded, and even the investors were taken for a ride. And definitely not something which any startup should try to aspire for. They should definitely bring corporate governance in much earlier. And I think that the earlier you bring in, the less effort you have to put in, because once your system is already established from day zero, there's no big change you need to make when you approach an investor and the investor says, okay, let's do the financial due diligence. A lot of startups tend to ignore this in the first 1 or 2 years. And by the time they get into the third or the fourth year, when they approach the investor, they're like, oh, where do I get that invoice from? Or, this purchase was made without a PO raised, and so on and so forth. And then they have to backdate the documents, and, that's where all problems starts coming in. Because for everything which you're starting late, there's a compromise. And whether that compromise is above the line or below the line can actually make a lot of difference. So a great set of points that you brought about as challenges. But the other element is, when you engage with startups on these challenges, there are certain lessons that you would have learned over a period of time in terms of these engagements. If you could cite some silver bullets or some key elements which startups should account for, very similar to what you mentioned.
Absolutely. So I have seen very common problem amongst most of the startup is about the equity distribution amongst the
Okay.
co-founders. So sometimes they start like a friends and they never discuss about that what is the equity split they should have, and then they look for a mentor who can help them out. That what should be the equity percentage for the CTO, CMO, and the CEO. And definitely it is not necessary that it should be always be equal, but depending upon the company, in case you are a D2C company, so definitely the role of CMO may be little higher than the CTO. If you are a tech company, then definitely CTO should have extra percentages. Even if it is equal, there should be rationale behind that why it should be equal. So whenever investor invest in the company, they want to understand that why this equity splits look like, and why this was decided that this will be in this particular ratios. So it should be very clear that it should be there. So again, I would not like to name a company, but the company was shut down because once they start growing, they raised the first round of funding. Their CTO, who had a 5% equity in the company, then he start claiming that I should have 33% in the company. So that's how in 2017 I see that the company who had raised $1 million, and after that no one has signed the shareholder agreement, and that company shut down. So these are the important challenges which should be resolved. Sometimes we as a mentor help them to resolve that by doing certain negotiation and hand-holding them that how to resolve that. But this is a strong point which I would like to mention through your podcast. Make sure that at the very first day itself, the ratios, roles and responsibility should be very clear, and it should be documented in co-founders agreement. As you mentioned, that we sometimes defer the corporate governance, thinking that it is not startup work. In the same way, people think that co-founder agreement is not required. I always keep emphasizing that co-founder agreement is very important. And I would like to mention second important point which I have seen in 3 companies during my 40 startups, and that gave them a very big loss, about the trademark registration. So what people do, they simply keep some name, and there is a myth around that if you have a .com domain, it means you are the owner of that IP. So that is the biggest myth people have. So even if you have a domain name, still if the similar name company is there in the market who is doing the same work or in the similar category, that you can't claim that name. So I have seen multiple cases, and I am sure you must also have seen the changes in the company because of this, and the entire effort which the founder had made in the brand building, that has been goes for the toss, because they have to restart the brand building. And the big corporates can do that easily if they want to change the name of the company. Take an example, if Idea want to become Vodafone, they can easily do lots of advertisement on newspaper. But for startup, it is like a fresh start, because no one's know that this is the same company where I was using a product earlier. So trademark and the co-founder agreement, I will summarize it. These are the 2 important things where I normally help the startups.
No, very true, and I agree with you. I think it's not just about having a shareholder agreement, but ensuring that the fair split of the shares is even more important, right? And that's where if the share is not fair initially, as you rightly mentioned in the case of that CTO, later on it might emerge as a big thorn, which is even worse, that you have a shareholder agreement, yet the agreement is not aligned. I mean, people are not aligned with that agreement. It can cause issues. And I think the trademark registration is a very important point. I personally was not aware about that it could actually become an issue, that even though you have the domain name, but the name can actually be copied by someone else if you don't own the trademark. So those are very important mistakes which startups need to avoid, and slip-ups, I would say, not even mistakes, which they might tend to deprioritize as well. The other interesting element is in terms of success stories, right? And you mentioned about Advantage Club, and obviously that's something which we mutually relate to. Any other particular startup that you would like to talk about where your engagement has been something which you cherish, some great relationship you shared? Any names if you could take?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a company called eBuyGo where I invested in 2019, and in fact 10 of my friends also invested with me. And when I showcased this opportunity to multiple people who were very regular in the investment domain, they said that we are very much ahead of the time in terms of EV. So we would not like to invest in this year, because I'm talking about 5 years ago, where there were only few vehicles on the road, and specifically two-wheelers. So there were hardly few which we could see, and now we can see that how many EVs are there, and the companies like Blue Smart, etc., are entirely built on the electric vehicle only. I invested in that company. I mentor them. I closely worked with them, and that gave very good returns to all my network. So that's how they are doing very well right now. And you can read about the e-bike story, entire story. They started with Amritsar, and now they are based out at Mumbai, because once they had to move to the Mumbai, because that is the finance city, and due to other reasons as well, because now this manufacturing unit is in Pune. But that is the biggest success story I would like to mention. Apart from it, I would like to mention another good startup which I always love to talk to is Coparuply. They recently appeared on the Shark Tank as well. I invested in that company 2 years ago through my fluid venture. But I am really happy with the founder, because she makes sure that every quarter's board meetings are happening formally and properly. Numbers are such where we don't have to chase her for the MIS. Whatever is the good news or bad news, she always gives to the investors. So she is so prompt and so regular in the information. So I always admire those founders who are very prompt and clear about the communication to the investor, because that's how, as an investor or the mentor, we can help them on those cases where they are suffering.
Very interesting. No, I think e-bike.go is a brand which I myself remember, and you're right, 2019 was a little early for EV companies. But today, if you notice, EV's rage is on the rage, right? I mean, it's a space which has a lot of potential, and yet everyone needs to play with caution, right? You can't just take things for granted, which is a beautiful sweet spot to be, right? There is opportunity, but not everyone can jump in and contribute, right? And that brings me to the next question, which is the role of innovation, right? How do you think innovation can actually be a big differentiator when you're thinking of a startup idea? We typically come across many founders who just have a cut copy paste model. I'm going to create Uber of so and so, or hey, Zomato has succeeded in that part of the world, I'm going to create Zomato here. And you really are not trying to innovate, you're just trying to replicate someone. Versus innovation is where you really start something from scratch. You have that big challenge that you need to explain your product and how it's actually going to work and deliver value to the customer, to your investor, to your parents, to your family, to your colleagues, to your employees. Everyone you need to keep explaining, which honestly can be quite painful. I mean, regardless of whatever confidence that you have, you need to explain, right? But how do you think it's critical to have an innovative product or solution as your central core theme for a startup?
Absolutely. So innovation is the key for the scalability, and it protect you from the other competition as well. So I strongly believe that there is no harm in cut copy paste as well, in case you feel that there is a space in the particular geography. So I have seen multiple businesses where they are doing something similar, which are doing good in the metro cities. Now they want to replicate the same thing in the tier 2 or tier 3 cities. They take the example of let's say auto rickshaw. If I can call auto rickshaw through my mobile app, if that facility is available in Delhi, however, if that facility is not available in any tier 3 cities and someone is doing in tier 3 cities, so that can also be considered as a startup. Definitely, I admire that, because again, there are lots of new challenges in the different cities. However, innovation is the key, because that help you to create the value of your company, and the value of the company or the valuation of the company can be only created if you have something unique which other people don't have. So innovation is very key, and you should keep doing that. And most of the time, whenever we will enter into the innovation part, we will fail as well, because whenever you try to do something new, it never be like that that you create on the first hand itself. But innovation is the key success and the scalability. So I strongly believe that innovation should be there.
Great. The next part is, when you talk about innovation, one of the source for inspiration is books. And as you know, I'm an avid reader of books. Any one or two books which you would like to recommend for the startups, for the founders?
Yeah, no, to be very honest, I don't read much books, but I love the podcast. So
Okay.
definitely, podcasts are the new books for the young generation. So definitely, people should look out for the good podcast.
Any podcast that you can recommend?
WTF by Nikhil Kamath. That's
Okay.
very focused. So I strongly
Okay.
recommend that people should look at.
Yeah, yeah. And any movie or any OTT series which you would want to recommend as an inspiration?
Hustler is the favorite one.
Okay.
So I will recommend two things. In fact, all the startup founders should look for the Hustler movie. However, I didn't like the end where he succeed by spending entire money on the marketing, while the other co-founder were suggesting them to spend money on the technology. So there was a hustle and deliberation between the founders that where should the money goes, which investors had invested. But this series shows the entire journey of the founder, how he started from the college and what was the end result. So definitely everyone should look for that. Apart from it, there is one program called Mission Start Up,
Okay.
which is on Amazon Prime, where
I remember that. Yeah.
seven episode series. It is similar to, I will say, Big Boss, where 10 founders were there. The program gave them different kind of challenges every week, and every founder eliminate. And at the last, there were only five founders who pitched to the investor, and two of them got the funding. So,
Wow.
so I believe those challenges were very correlatable to the founder journey. People should
Right.
look out at that and should look for the real solution. Like in one of the episodes, they ask them to approach to the CEO of the biggest company that you become my partner. And in our founder journey, we keep doing that. If he will become my partner, like the big giants, definitely
Yeah.
I will be able to achieve faster. So they showcase the negotiation part, etc. And it was
Yeah.
very well edited. So I strongly recommend that series.
Wonderful. No, absolutely great suggestions when it comes to the podcast, WTF, Hustler as the movie, and Mission Startup. And thanks for reminding me, because, when it got launched, I was like, yeah, this I want to watch. But, nowadays there is so much influx of content every now and then. It just completely missed my mind. So I'm sure the listeners would benefit a lot from that. So that's all.
Hetal, I would like to mention one thing in the
Yeah.
beginning itself. The winner are my portfolio company, Redesign, in that
Oh,
movie.
wonderful.
However,
That
there is
adds.
no definition of the winner because at the last all five were winner. But
Yeah.
Redesign was the company who got the funding from all three investors.
Wonderful. That's like putting the icing on the cake. So that's all about you. What's the question you have for me?
Uh, what make you happy?
That's a good question. Challenges make me happy. I hate stuff when it's normal. I enjoy when there is something unusual. I missed my bus. I missed my flight. I missed a deadline. I need to catch up. I'm gaining weight. All these are happy moments for me, because that means I need to do something extra. I need to do something different. I need to do something which I have not thought I could do. That makes me happy.
Nice, very
Great.
good.
Thanks a lot, Amit. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I'm sure the startups and the incubators of GRG Gen Next incubator will benefit a lot through the sound words of advice that you've given, and I hope to have multiple mentorship engagements happening with you in the near future.
Sure. Thank you very
Thank you.
much once again, Hetal, for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.